Hello everyone. Today we are continuing the series on building an AI chatbot using Spring AI and Olama model locally. In this series we are building a recipe helper chatbot and we are trying to implement concepts of AI engineering that can help us in our day-to-day lives. So in today's video let us start by discussing about prompts and how we will use prompts to fine-tune LLM responses in our recipe helper chatbot. So as you can see, there are basically two parts to a prompt. First part is called system prompt and the second part is called user prompt, which we are more familiar with. The system prompt basically tells the LLM who it is and how to behave, right? And the user prompt is the actual question that we as a user are trying to ask or put through to the LLM. Let us understand it using two examples. So on the first case on the left, you can see we are giving a system prompt where we are saying the LLM, you are an expert chef with 20 years of experience. And the user prompt says, how do I make butter chicken? On giving this on combination of the system prompt and user prompt, the LLM behaves like a 20-year experienced chef and responds accordingly. This augments the LLM response with the correct data and provides a more fine-tuned response. On the right, we are saying that we are using the same user prompt, but this time for the system prompt we have used you are a funny comedian. Now the response LLM responds accordingly and behaves like a comedian while providing instructions on making butter chicken. So this in this way, the combination of system prompt and user prompt can help us fine tune the LLM responses according to the requirement that we have. Now to understand this combination of system prompt and user prompt and how it can help us, what we are going to do today is we are going to create three APIs using our Spring AI middleware application that we had created in the first part of this series. So the first API is expert cook. And as you can understand, via this API, we are configuring the system prompt in such a way that the LLM behaves like an expert cook. And whatever message we sent in via this API, the LLM would respond accordingly. The second API is to demonstrate the comedian example where we have configured the system prompt in such a way that the LLM would behave like a comedian while answering our questions. In the third example or API, we have kept it more open-ended. Basically, we have provided the ability to configure the persona or the role that we want to pass in the request body, and our API would read this persona value and the LLM would behave accordingly and then answer our questions or respond to our prompts. So let us see this in action and let us start coding this up. In the previous video, we had built a chat controller and a chat service. The chat controller is exposing an API route which is used to talk to our Olama LLM that is running locally in our terminal here. So we will continue from this point. What we will do is, as we are creating a new way of interaction with the LLM using prompts, we will create a new service and let's call it prompt chat service. Let's add it to Git and we'll mark it as a service class so that Spring handles the life cycle of this bean. And as in the previous example, we will be needing a chat model to interact with the LLM. Okay. After this, what functionality we are trying to build here is, first, we are trying to chat as an expert cook, right? As we saw in our APIs, right? So first API is expert cook. So first we will try to chat as an expert cook. And let's create a method. So we'll create a public method which will return the LLM response and we will call it chat with cooking expert. And this will take in the user message. And what we'll do here is, whenever we are talking with cooking expert, as we saw in the explanation, we want to use the power of system prompts plus the user prompt. So what we'll do is we'll design a system prompt. System prompt for expert cook, correct? So let us try to design this prompt here. And what we'll do is we'll uh, try to specify as much details as possible. So I'll say you are an expert chef with 20 years of experience in international cuisine. You provide clear and detailed cooking instructions. So I'm just making this up. You can try various other prompts to make it more detailed. So you are, I'll say, to specify the tone right, I'll say you are encouraging and supportive, and I'll say always include required ingredients and cooking times when relevant. So this is our system prompt that will augment the LLM response and make it fine-tuned. So now that we have the system prompt ready, let's create a utility method that will consume the system prompt and the user prompt and use it to send the request to the LLM. So we'll call this method maybe chat with system prompt, and it will take two parameters. First one would be the system prompt and the second one will be the user prompt, correct? And here we will use the message class that Spring AI provides. So make sure that the import is org.springframework.ai.chat.messages. So basically Spring Framework provides us three types of messages. So first one we are using now is a system message is equal to new system message, and this takes the system prompt in as a constructor argument, and this will augment the prompt with a system prompt that will use to fine tune the AI response. The next type of message that we'll use is a user message. So new user message again from the same package, and we will use the user prompt here in the constructor argument. So this user message becomes the actual question for the LLM. After that, what we do is using the system prompt or system message and the user message, we create a final prompt. Okay. So again, this prompt object is also from the Spring Framework.ai.chat.prompt package. So make sure the imports are correct. So what this does is when we create this takes a list of system message and user message. We'll import the list class here. So now that our prompt is ready, what we will do is we will use the chat model and we'll use the call method. We'll pass in the prompt here. And once we do this, this returns us a chat response. So we'll store the response in a chat response. And what we'll do is the chat response object will return chat response dot, we'll get the result out of it, we'll get the output out of it, and we'll get the text response out of it. So this chat with system prompt method will help us in both in chatting with the cooking expert and in chatting with the comedian as well. So let's return chat with system prompt, and we have already created a system prompt for the expert cook, and the user message comes from here. So we just pass it forward. Using this, we complete the chat with cooking expert method. We created the chat model in, but we did not initialize it. So let us create a constructor, and via constructor injection, we will create and initialize our chat model. We'll do this dot chat model is equal to chat model. So now our chat with cooking expert method is ready. What we'll do now is We'll write a method to chat as a comedian. And this method would be pretty similar. So I'll just copy paste and I'll say chat with comedian. We'll take in a user message here. Okay. And I have the comedian system prompt ready. So I'll just paste it in to save some time here. You can use your own system prompt for comedian here as well. Right. So I'll just change the variable name. We'll call it system prompt for comedian and we'll pass it in. So our chat with comedian method is also ready. Okay. Now we'll build the API routes that will interact and invoke this service. So let's do that. So what we'll do here is we'll create a new post mapping. Okay. And we will call this, as per our diagram, we will call this expert hyphen cook. So it will be slash expert hyphen cook. Okay. And what it will do is basically we are chatting with an AI cook here, and the message or the request body that we are expecting to see here would ideally be in this format. So we are expecting that the user will send us a message and we will use our configured system prompt to respond to the user. So let's create this route. So we'll say post mapping and we'll say slash expert cook and we'll say public map of string and string chat with expert cook, and as the arguments we are expecting a request body in JSON format, so it's a map of string and string and we'll call it the request. And what we'll do here is we'll extract the message out of the request body, so we'll say request dot get message. Then what we'll do is we'll call, so we need our prompt chat service that we created newly, right? So let us import that. So private final prompt chat service, and we use constructor injection to bring in or inject this dependency, as that is the Spring Boot best practice. So we'll say this dot prompt chat service is equal to prompt chat service. We assign the class level variable here inside the constructor and then use it inside this API route. So what we'll say here, that prompt chat service, I need to use the chat with cooking expert method from you, and we'll pass in the user's message here, and this returns us a response in string format. So we capture that and we return a map of, we'll return a map of, so let's say the user said this and our the mode was we were in expert cook mode and the assistant provided us this response. So this is a basic expert cook route that we made. Now let us try to run this and we'll see whether it works or not. So our Spring Boot application has started, and let us use Postman to fire an API request. So I've created a Postman request using our expert cook route here. So you can do the same. So what we'll say is API slash chat slash expert cook, and we fire in this message body. So how to make coffee. So let us fire it in and we'll see that the request is received by our Spring AI application and has been augmented with the system prompt here and has been forwarded to the LLM here, locally running Olama model here. So let us see what response we get. So okay, so expert cook says, my friend, let's start the day off right with a delicious cup of coffee. Correct? So this means our expert cook route is working. Let us create the comedian right now route as well and see how the responses differ due to the differing system prompts. So let us quickly make that. So we already have a chat with comedian. And let us create the post mapping for this. So we'll do slash comedian. So we're creating the slash comedian API route now, and it will be mostly same. So I'll just copy paste and change few things. So chat with, we'll call it chat with comedian, and from the prompt service we'll say, hey, I need the chat with comedian method, and the mode will say that now we are running in comedian mode. Okay, so this simple change, and let's restart the server and let us see how the code reacts and how the system prompt augments the LLM response. So our Spring Boot application has started. Now here you see, right, the previous API request had the mode as expert cook. Now we'll create an API request using the comedian API. So in the comedian I said ask the same question and I hit send, and let us see how the response changes. So out here on our Spring Boot application logs, we are seeing that the system prompt for comedian has been added to the prompt request, and let us see how the response has changed. So see, coffee, the lifeblood of many a comedian's routine. But seriously, folks, let me brew up some tips for making coffee. So you see here, right, how using the system prompt, we have tweaked the LLM response and we have modified the tone and the information shared. So this example shows that the combination of system prompt and user prompt is a very, very powerful tool that we have in our arsenal to tweak the LLM responses as per our requirements. Now let us try out the third and the final API, that is the persona chat. So what this will allow us is, instead of hard coding the system prompt inside our service itself, we'll accept or we'll take this system prompt as an input from the user. So let us build that. So the service method for this, right, chat with system prompt is already there. We have to implement a new API route for this. So we'll say add post mapping and we'll say slash persona chat. Okay, and inside persona chat, again we'll just reuse code from the above, and what we'll say is chat with persona, and from the request body we'll take two things out. First thing is the message, second thing is the persona that the user sends in. So we'll say, let me stop the server here. So we'll say request dot get, and I'm expecting the persona to be passed in the request body here. So I am taking the persona, and what we'll say is prompt chat service. We want to use the method chat with system prompt here, and as the first argument I'll pass on the persona and the second argument will remain the same. So here the mode will now change to persona chat. The user says this, and let us add one more parameter saying that the persona was this and the assistant responded with this. Okay, so with this little change, let us restart the server and see what happens. So our server has started. Let us try the API. So we'll go to chat using persona here. So what I've written here is you are an expert Indian classical singer, uh, and the message still remains the same. Tell me how to make coffee. So let us see how the LLM responds to this persona. As you say here, right? My friend, I'm afraid I must politely decline your request. As a classical singer, my expertise lies in the realm of music and the nuances of Indian classical vocal. So this is exactly working the way we wanted it. Let us tweak it and try to play around with it. So I'll say you are an expert Java architect. Let us see how this turns out. Okay, so here it's something interesting. A break from coding, I suppose. As a Java architect, I'll give you the architecture of making a great cup of coffee. Here's a step by step guide, design pattern, espresso style coffee. So this is a pretty interesting response that we you can try it out and read. And yeah, so I think this was it for this video. We saw the three basic API routes, and we used system prompts and user prompts uh, together to tweak and fine tune the LLM responses as per our requirements. So I hope this video helped you learn something, and I will see you again in the next video. Thank you so much for your time.